Wanted to talk about experimentation today. And one of the experiments that I've been doing lately is I've been really exploring the 40 millimeter focal length in photography. So if you're not a photography person, we're going to go to some other places that aren't photography, so stick with me. But here's what I was doing. So this is the Viltrox 40 millimeter f2.5 lens, might be called f2.5 Air, but it is a fairly popular, inexpensive f2.5 40 millimeter lens. This is the new TT Artisan 40 millimeter f2. TT Artisan 40 millimeter f2. And so f2.5, f2, they're similar enough. But the reason I thought about trying one different was that they're just a little different in size. The Viltrox is just a little bit bigger. So I thought, I wonder if, and I like the build quality of the TT Artisan one a little more in this case because it's metal feeling and because there's an aperture ring and stuff. So I tried it out. They're both inexpensive lenses. They both cost, the TT Artisan's like 168, and I got the Viltrox off eBay for 100 bucks. So, you know, they cost very low dollars compared to some of the lenses that you can buy today for brand new modern lenses. What I wanted to see was, so the 40 millimeter focal length, that's halfway between 35 and 50 in some ways. It's closer to 35. But what it is it's just almost wide, but it is for sure a little more close up than something like a 35 millimeter, which, yes, duh. But what I've been chasing, like this is a 35 millimeter lens here. It's a manual lens per gear. What I've been chasing is something that feels small and compact on the camera. And that kind of does, right? That's on the Sony a7 IV. And what I was chasing was, what's the quality going to look like between the two lenses? What's good and what's bad? And in this process, what I found myself thinking about was something that I get from Buddhism. So I am a Shambhala Buddhist. I learned about this starting, I think, back 2011, 2012. And Pema Chodron, who's an author who's written books like When Things Fall Apart and many other books. She's one of the top nuns in the Shambhala Buddhist world. She's an author, multi-time author, speaker. So if you have ever heard anything about Shambhala or not, you've heard about Pema Chodron. One of the things she said in Buddhism, and it's really stuck with me, is that it's one important part of our experience is to give ourselves, find ways to give ourselves compassion and grace and kindness, accept ourselves. And it's interesting how this kind of crossed my thoughts when it deals with photography and experimentation and in general life. But if I narrow it down to photography for you, then you don't have to feel so anxious about like the rest of everything. But what I was thinking was this: when you can start accepting when things don't go the right way, when you fumble, when you stumble, when you fall, when you can start accepting that maybe something isn't just so, and receive that with compassion and grace and be okay with it, everything else just works better. And so what I wanted to say in this little video was that this can extend from something as simple as trying out different lenses to see which one works and then knowing you're going to sell one back or something like that. That sort of relentless pursuit of lenses, giving myself permission to say, we chase what we want. Like we are trying to get that thing that makes us just feel real good and try it and be happy with it. Like I did that whole, and it's over there behind me, the Voigtlander 50 millimeter. I rocked that for a full month on my camera. And then I came back and talked about how weird it was when I switched off of that into other lenses and what it felt like. And what I was thinking now, today, and what I'm reaching out to you about was just that when we allow ourselves grace and compassion to experiment, to try new things, to pursue, I think everything goes better. It's so strange. It's strange. We don't give ourselves a lot of slack, do we? We tend to feel a lot of tension. And sometimes other people don't give us slack, right? People might complain or they might push back, or they might say, oh, that's just how you always are. That's what you've always done. Like there's all kinds of things that can bubble up. And when people say them about us, when it's a third party saying it to you, you got to remember too that sometimes that's their autobiography. Like that's their mess coming out of their mouth onto you, even if they're saying that they're talking about you. A lot of times they're complaining about themselves. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the fact that we can't fix other people. We can't change other people. We can influence them sometimes, but we can affect ourselves. And so if only we allowed ourselves to be kind and compassionate and give ourselves grace when we try new things, when we experiment, when we're trying to break out of what we were, when we are trying to move and make some progress in some of the stuff we're doing, maybe everything goes better if we do that sort of a thing. If we make that kind of permission for ourselves, if we allow and accept that we don't always succeed or we don't always win and that we can just keep going. It's, it's Dory in Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. It's that sense of Professor Anthony Kiedis, complete the motion if you stumble, in his very famous work, Can't Stop. So it's important that we allow ourselves that grace. Back to photography for a second. The difference, as it turned out, between the Viltrox and the TT Artisan, I'm going to put some photos up and I'll show you some of the difference, what you may or may not see on the screen. I did a little bit of apples to bananas here and see what we could see. But I wanted to also say the difference was, it turns out after I came to the conclusion that I thought the TT Artisan might have just narrowly beat the Viltrox in what I thought were kind of which was better out of each of those photos that we're showing. After I did all that and I came down to it, I saw somebody comment, and I hadn't even tried a test like this. They said, yeah, except that it's great, it's fine, except that the autofocus isn't very fast. And I realized, oh, well, you know what? I wouldn't have even thought to test how fast autofocus is. One, because I don't shoot sports or children. Two, because I often have been doing manual focus. This is a manual focus lens. My Voigtlander is a manual focus lens. I've been doing manual so much that I didn't even think to test how fast autofocus worked. To me, however it was working was the speed. And I thought it was fine until I went and tested it and sort of said, well, how fast can I make something focus? And it was a lot slower than the Viltrox this time round, God bless. So in that case, I felt to myself, man, I would have gone all the way with this TT Artisan lens had I not been told, oh yeah, you should check this detail out as well. And it's not life or death. It's not the end of the world. It's not big stakes or anything like that. But boy, I thought, wow, I could have really, made the wrong choice there or something. And that's when I got into that thought about grace and compassion and kindness and saying, well, you just wouldn't have thought to make that test, but now you know, and now next time maybe you will make that test. For you, what I'm thinking is maybe give yourself permission to go out and try new things. Try stuff you haven't done. If you have an inexpensive camera that you've been thinking about going out and using, and you've had it in auto focus this whole time, what if you risk setting it to manual focus and go out and see if you can figure out some stuff and make mistakes? What if you accept that you can and will make mistakes? What if you do that in other parts of your life? Where else do you think you could risk making a mistake but still kind of be okay? Now, one quick caveat on that. If you make a mistake that upsets or hurts or does something that might be negatively impactful to other people, I have one important thing. Always apologize fast. Be really crisp and clean in your apology. If you make a mistake that impacts somebody else, you want to take some responsibility for that. But if they're just mistakes that are going to mess you up, be kind to yourself. Give yourself that compassion and say to yourself, wow, okay, all right, I've learned some things. That's kind of important. I'm going to finish on one little thing that's totally 90-degree angle and has nothing to do with photography whatsoever. And it's not a sale or a pitch or anything like that. I'm not sponsored by Squarespace or something yet. Call me. I learned how to vibe code, which is like when you ask AI to write your code for you and then kind of edit it and fix it and do whatever. I've never written a drop of code in my whole life, but I learned. And the way I learned was failing horribly and then watching a YouTube video and going, oh, well, that makes a little more sense. Learning some stuff about how to write a specifications document, and then made an app. And I did this over the span of 2 days. Now, it does not mean that I know how to make a lot of apps. I would not call myself a coder. But wow, when I gave myself space and when I gave myself compassion and kindness, when I tried and just learned and stumbled over my mistakes as I kept going, I was able to complete that project. That's cool, right? That's cool. That's all I got. We're done. I made an app. I'm practically Steve Jobs. Listen, or Bill Gates at least. I don't know. Chris@chrisbrogan.com. Send me an email. I am always grateful to hear from you. And this is the whole essence of why I say this every time I end this show. Be good to yourself. This is the compassion, the kindness that I'm talking about. Be good to yourself. Is that okay? Is that a plan? Let's do it.